In Chicago's gleaming financial district, a brilliant strategist was about to face career annihilation. What started as a routine presentation took a shocking turn when they came face to face with institutional bias disguised as corporate policy. Sarah Mitchell wasn't your typical junior analyst. For 5 years, she had spent her life climbing from intern to senior strategy director at Harrison & Associates, known for her revolutionary digital transformation strategies that could save dying businesses. When she encountered Margaret Henley's systematic resistance to innovation, she had no idea she was walking into a carefully orchestrated demotion designed to silence disruptive thinking. Sarah's unauthorized decision to prove her theories on a failing client would lead to a corporate reckoning that exposed decades of institutional discrimination. What began as professional humiliation would become vindication that transformed an entire industry. The prestigious consulting firm would never be the same after a demoted analyst's 340% results proved that innovation could triumph over institutional conservatism. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Sarah Mitchell's fingers traced the edge of her tablet as she stood at the head of the gleaming conference table, 42 floors above Chicago's bustling financial district. The morning sun cast sharp angles through the floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating the polished faces of Harrison & Associates' executive team. She'd rehearsed this moment countless times in her apartment mirror, perfecting every gesture, every inflection. Today would change everything. Traditional retail analytics are dead, she began, her voice carrying the confidence of 5 years climbing from intern to senior strategy director. While our clients struggle with outdated inventory systems and guesswork marketing, their competitors are leveraging AI to predict customer behavior with surgical precision. The interactive display behind her came alive with cascading data visualizations. Customer journey maps flowed like digital rivers across the screen, showing purchase patterns, seasonal trends, and predictive algorithms that could transform any struggling retailer into a market leader. Sarah had spent 3 months perfecting these models, working late into Chicago's winter nights until her Northwestern Kellogg training merged seamlessly with intuitive innovation. James Harrison III leaned forward, his Harvard-educated features sharp with interest. As the grandson of the firm's founder, his approval carried weight that could launch careers or end them. The ROI projections look impressive, Sarah. Walk us through the implementation timeline. Sarah's confidence surged. This was her moment. The vindication her parents never got when their Milwaukee manufacturing business crumbled in 2008. While other senior directors relied on safe, incremental improvements, she'd developed something revolutionary. Her fingers danced across the tablet, bringing up detailed financial projections. Phase 1 involves integrating customer analytics platforms across existing retail infrastructures, she explained, highlighting specific data points. We're talking about 45% improvement in inventory turnover, 60% reduction in marketing waste, and customer satisfaction scores that put our clients ahead of Amazon's metrics. Margaret Henley's pen tapped against her leather portfolio, a sharp, rhythmic sound that cut through Sarah's presentation like a metronome, counting down to failure. The vice president of human resources had perfected the art of professional skepticism over 15 years of corporate climbing. Her interruption came with surgical precision. These numbers assume perfect implementation conditions. Margaret's voice carried diplomatic concern that masked deeper resistance. What about client adaptation challenges? Most of our retail partners operate on razor-thin margins. They can't afford experimental technology that might disrupt their existing operations. Sarah's prepared response flowed smoothly, but she noticed the subtle shift in the room's energy. Eleanor Patterson, the sole female board member, maintained neutral interest, but her decades of corporate warfare had taught her to read between presentations. David Chen, Sarah's closest ally in data analysis, offered an encouraging nod from his position near the wall, though his ethical compass was already spinning with concerns about implementation costs. The beauty of this system lies in its modular deployment, Sarah continued, pulling up risk mitigation charts. We start with one location, prove the concept, then scale systematically. The predictive algorithms actually reduce risk by eliminating guesswork from retail decisions. Margaret's interruption came faster this time. her territorial instincts triggering automated corporate defense mechanisms. "Sarah, I appreciate innovation, but these proposals represent massive infrastructure investments during uncertain economic times. Our clients trust us for stable, proven strategies, not experimental technology that could destabilize their operations." The word experimental hung in the air like a verdict. Sarah felt her parents' business failure echo in that dismissal. The same conservative thinking that prevented adaptation, that chose familiar failure over innovative success. Her jaw tightened almost imperceptibly, a tell that David recognized from their late-night strategy sessions. With respect, Margaret, every major retail success story of the past decade started with someone willing to embrace data-driven transformation. Sarah's voice carried an edge that years of corporate training couldn't quite suppress. Amazon, Target's digital pivot, even Walmart's e-commerce integration, they all began with leaders brave enough to challenge traditional thinking. James Harrison's interest wavered as institutional pressure mounted. His family legacy demanded stability above innovation, and Margaret's concerns aligned with board expectations that prioritized risk management over revolutionary change. The weight of 3 generations of Harrison and Associates tradition pressed against Sarah's vision like gravity. "These are compelling ideas," James said carefully, his diplomatic training kicking in. "But Margaret raises valid concerns about implementation risks and client readiness. Perhaps we should consider a more gradual approach to digital integration." Sarah recognized the corporate death knell disguised as constructive feedback. Her presentation had shifted from revolutionary proposal to academic exercise. Her months of research reduced to, quote, compelling ideas that would die in committee review. The room's energy dissipated like air escaping a punctured balloon. Thomas Brennan, the independent board member whose Fortune 500 experience commanded respect, remained silent during the exchange. His weathered features betrayed nothing, though his entrepreneur's instincts recognized both the proposal's potential and the institutional resistance strangling it. He'd seen similar dynamics destroy countless innovations in boardrooms across America. "I think we need to table this for further review," Margaret concluded with finality that brooked no argument. "Sarah, let's schedule a private meeting tomorrow to discuss implementation concerns and alternative approaches. We appreciate your enthusiasm for innovation, but Harrison & Associates has built its reputation on proven methodologies." The dismissal hit Sarah like a physical blow. Enthusiasm, as if her months of research and analysis amounted to nothing more than naive excitement. She gathered her materials with practiced professionalism, though her hands trembled slightly as she disconnected her tablet from the display system. "Of course," Sarah replied, her voice steady despite the crushing weight of institutional rejection. "I'll prepare additional risk mitigation strategies for our discussion." As the executives filed out, discussing safer topics like quarterly reports and client retention, Sarah remained at the conference table, staring at the blank presentation screen. Her reflection stared back from its dark surface. A brilliant strategist whose ideas were too revolutionary for the very institution that claimed to value innovation. David lingered near the doorway, recognizing the devastation hidden behind Sarah's professional composure. Her parents' business had failed because they couldn't adapt fast enough to changing markets. Now she watched her own adaptation strategies dismissed by the same conservative thinking that killed family businesses across America. The irony wasn't lost on her. Harrison & Associates would help their clients fail slowly and predictably, rather than risk the uncertainty of transformative success. Tomorrow's meeting with Margaret would determine whether Sarah's career would follow the same trajectory as her parents' manufacturing dream, another casualty of institutional resistance to necessary change. Sarah knocked twice on Margaret Henley's office door, her Northwestern MBA training reminding her that confidence in defeat often determined future opportunities. The morning after her presentation felt different, heavier somehow, as if the building's 42 floors pressed down with institutional weight she'd never noticed before. "Come in, Sarah." Margaret's voice carried professional warmth that didn't reach her eyes. The HR office reflected 15 years of careful career construction. Family photos positioned strategically, awards that demonstrated company loyalty, and filing systems that could destroy careers with surgical precision. Sarah settled into the chair across from Margaret's mahogany desk, noting how the furniture arrangement created subtle power dynamics. Margaret sat elevated, backlit by windows that reduced visitors to silhouettes while keeping the HR executive clearly illuminated. Corporate psychology at its most calculated. "I've given considerable thought to yesterday's presentation," Margaret began, opening a manila folder with Sarah's name printed in neat block letters. "Your ideas show creativity, but they also reveal concerning gaps in judgment regarding client stability and company protocol." The folder's contents made Sarah's stomach drop. Performance reviews stretching back months, carefully documented instances of disruptive behavior, and assessment forms that painted her innovation as insubordination. Margaret had been building this case long before yesterday's presentation. "I don't understand," Sarah said, though understanding was crystallizing with brutal clarity. "My client satisfaction scores are consistently high, and my strategic recommendations have generated significant revenue increases." Margaret's expression remained diplomatically neutral, but her voice carried the finality of institutional authority. "Sarah, success isn't just about individual performance. It's about team cohesion, company culture, and maintaining client relationships that trust our proven methodologies. Your presentation yesterday demonstrated a concerning disconnect from these core values." The paperwork emerged with administrative precision. Demotion forms, salary reduction notices, and reassignment documentation that stripped away 5 years of career advancement in 15 minutes of corporate efficiency. Senior Strategy Director became Junior Analyst with the stroke of a pen. "Your new position will allow you to focus on fundamental analysis while developing better judgment about appropriate innovation levels," Margaret explained, as if career destruction was therapeutic treatment. "Rebecca Foster will assume your former responsibilities. She has the temperament and collaborative approach our clients expect." Sarah felt her parents' business failure echo in Margaret's words. The same institutional thinking that prevented adaptation, that chose familiar mediocrity over transformative success. Her father's face flashed in her memory. The defeated expression when he realized their manufacturing business couldn't survive corporate clients who preferred predictable failure over innovative solutions. "This is about my presentation being too ambitious?" Sarah asked, though she already knew the answer ran deeper than single incidents. "This was about challenging systems designed to resist challenge. It's about professional judgment and company fit," Margaret replied with HR-trained deflection. "Harrison and Associates values team players who understand our conservative client base. Your ideas might work in Silicon Valley startups, but our retail partners need stability, not experimental technology that could destabilize their operations." The words hit like corporate poison, dismissing innovation as recklessness, framing conservatism as wisdom. Sarah recognized the systematic nature of her situation. This wasn't personal failure. It was institutional antibodies rejecting foreign ideas that threatened established hierarchies. "When does this take effect?" Sarah's voice remained steady, though rage built beneath professional composure. "Immediately. Building Services will help you relocate to your new workspace this afternoon. Your salary adjustment begins with the next pay period, a 40% reduction reflecting your new responsibilities." 40%. Sarah calculated quickly. Rent, student loans, the financial independence she'd fought to achieve after watching her parents lose everything. The demotion wasn't just professional humiliation. It was economic warfare designed to force compliance or departure. "I'll need to review the documentation," Sarah said, gathering the papers that detailed her corporate execution. "Of course. Take all the time you need to process this transition." Sarah stood, recognizing dismissal in Margaret's tone. Outside the HR office, the main floor buzzed with normal corporate activity. Colleagues pursuing careers that suddenly seemed fragile, vulnerable to institutional whims that could destroy years of progress without warning. David Chen waited near the elevator bank, his data analyst's instincts having predicted this outcome when he witnessed yesterday's presentation dynamics. His expression mixed sympathy with anger at systemic injustice he couldn't prevent. "How bad?" he asked quietly. "Junior analyst, 40% salary cut. Rebecca gets my position." Sarah's voice carried flat shock that preceded explosive anger. David's jaw tightened. His immigrant parents had sacrificed everything for his education, choosing corporate stability over academic idealism to support their family financially. Watching Sarah's punishment for innovation triggered protective instincts that surprised him with their intensity. "This is bullshit," he said with rare profanity that demonstrated the depth of his outrage. "It's institutional bias disguised as performance management," Sarah replied, her analytical mind already dissecting the systematic nature of her destruction. Margaret's been building documentation for months, waiting for the right trigger. They walked toward Sarah's soon-to-be former corner office, where cardboard boxes waited like corporate coffins. Eleanor Patterson observed from her office doorway, recognizing familiar patterns from her own battles against institutional resistance 20 years earlier. Her expression mixed sympathy with strategic calculation. Some fights required patience, timing, and allies before victory became possible. Rebecca Foster appeared awkwardly near Sarah's office, carrying personnel folders that represented her unexpected promotion. The Michigan State graduate had always felt overshadowed by Ivy League colleagues, seeing Sarah's downfall as unfortunate opportunity she couldn't refuse despite personal loyalty. "Sarah, I'm sorry about how this happened," Rebecca said, her voice carrying genuine regret mixed with career ambition. "Congratulations on your promotion," Sarah replied without irony. "You'll do well with traditional strategies. The clients will feel safe." As Sarah packed her personal items, awards for innovation that now seemed like evidence against her, she felt institutional weight settling like lead in her chest. Her parents' business had failed because they couldn't adapt fast enough. Her career was failing because she'd adapted too quickly for systems designed to resist change. But beneath the humiliation and economic fear, something harder crystallized. Margaret had underestimated the determination that survived family business failure and 5 years of corporate climbing. Tomorrow, Sarah would report to her new cubicle as a demoted analyst. But tonight, she would begin planning how to prove that innovation could succeed despite institutional resistance. The building's windows reflected her face as she gathered the last of her belongings, a brilliant strategist whose ideas were too revolutionary for the very institution that claimed to value progress. Soon, she would discover just how revolutionary she could become when pushed beyond institutional breaking points. 3 weeks of cubicle purgatory had given Sarah Mitchell time to perfect the art of professional invisibility. Her new workspace, a gray fabric-walled box barely large enough for a desk and chair, sat in the main analyst pool, where junior staff processed routine reports under fluorescent lighting that drained ambition from the most determined spirits. The assignment folder landed on her desk with bureaucratic finality. Midwest Retail Solutions, a client account everyone whispered about in break rooms, the kind of hopeless case that destroyed careers and reputation scores. Sarah opened the file, recognizing institutional punishment disguised as work assignment. Marcus Thompson's company was hemorrhaging money with mathematical precision. Sales down 60% over 3 years. Inventory turnover rates that defied economic logic, and customer satisfaction scores that suggested active hostility rather than retail engagement. The previous senior analyst had requested transfer after 6 months of watching traditional consulting methods fail with spectacular consistency. Sarah studied the financial projections with growing fascination. Midwest Retail Solutions wasn't just failing, it was failing in exactly the ways her digital transformation strategy could address. Outdated inventory systems, non-existent customer analytics, supply chain management that belonged in a business school case study about what not to do. "They gave you the death assignment," David Chen observed, appearing beside her cubicle with coffee and quiet sympathy. His data analyst responsibilities kept him busy with viable clients, but he'd made time to check on Sarah's institutional exile. "They gave me the perfect testing ground," Sarah replied, her voice carrying determination that surprised them both. "Look at these metrics, David. This is exactly the kind of operation my presentation could save." David leaned closer, recognizing the analytical gleam in Sarah's eyes that preceded either breakthrough or catastrophic risk-taking. "Sarah, this is a junior analyst assignment. You're supposed to document their decline, not engineer their recovery. Maybe, or maybe this is my chance to prove that innovation works in practice, not just PowerPoint presentations." The drive to Marcus Thompson's warehouse facility took Sarah through Chicago's industrial suburbs, where family businesses fought losing battles against e-commerce giants and changing consumer behavior. The Midwest Retail Solutions complex sprawled across several acres of cracked asphalt, its tired buildings reflecting decades of family ownership and recent financial desperation. Marcus Thompson met her at the loading dock, his weathered face carrying the weight of 3 generations of family legacy. At 55, he possessed the broad shoulders and calloused hands of someone who'd built success through physical work, but his eyes held the hollow look of a man watching everything his grandfather created slip away. "Another consultant," he said without enthusiasm, gesturing toward the warehouse interior. "Let me guess. You're here to tell me about synergy and optimization while my inventory sits unsold and my employees worry about their jobs." Sarah followed him through rows of merchandise that told the story of retail evolution in reverse. Fashion items from 3 seasons ago, electronics that had been cutting edge when ordered but were obsolete by delivery, sporting goods that missed crucial seasonal windows because nobody tracked purchasing patterns or predicted demand. "How long has your family owned this business?" she asked, genuinely curious rather than professionally obligated. "My grandfather started it in 1967. Built relationships with manufacturers, knew every customer by name, could predict what would sell based on 30 years of watching Chicago neighborhoods change." Marcus's voice carried pride mixed with growing despair. "But knowing neighborhoods doesn't help when customers shop online and manufacturers demand minimum orders we can't afford." Sarah recognized the familiar story. Family businesses destroyed not by lack of effort, but by institutional inability to adapt quickly enough. Her parents' manufacturing company had failed the same way, crushed between corporate clients who demanded impossible terms and changing markets they couldn't navigate. "What if I told you there were ways to predict customer behavior with the same precision your grandfather had, but using data instead of personal relationships?" Sarah asked carefully, testing the waters for receptivity to unconventional approaches. Marcus stopped walking, his expression shifting from polite skepticism to cautious interest. "I'd say you're the first consultant who's mentioned customers instead of cost-cutting and operational efficiency." They spent the next hour touring facilities that revealed systematic problems Sarah's digital transformation strategy could address. Customer purchase history existed only as scattered receipt records. Inventory management relied on visual estimates and seasonal guesswork. Marketing consisted of newspaper ads and direct mail that generated response rates approaching statistical zero. "Your grandfather was doing customer analytics," Sarah explained as they finished the tour. "He just called it knowing his neighbors." Today, we can recreate that personal touch using data that reveals patterns across thousands of customers instead of dozens. Marcus's skepticism was earned through months of consulting disappointments, but desperation made him willing to listen. Previous consultants promised miracle solutions. None of them understood retail at ground level. They just pushed standardized solutions that worked for big corporations. "I'm not here to implement someone else's template," Sarah said, her voice carrying conviction that surprised her with its intensity. "I want to understand your specific challenges and develop solutions that fit your operation." As they discussed customer patterns and seasonal challenges, Sarah felt excitement building, the same energy that had driven her presentation 3 weeks earlier. Marcus Thompson's business was dying. But it wasn't dead. With proper customer analytics, predictive inventory management, and targeted marketing based on purchasing behavior, Midwest Retail Solutions could not only survive but thrive. "I'll need to analyze your sales data, customer records, and operational patterns," Sarah said as their meeting concluded. "The initial assessment will take several weeks." "Take all the time you need," Marcus replied. "But understand, we're 6 months from bankruptcy. Whatever solutions you develop need to work in the real world, not just on paper." Driving back to Harrison and Associates, Sarah felt purpose crystallizing with dangerous clarity. Margaret Henley had assigned her to document a failure. Instead, Sarah would create a success that proved innovation could save businesses that traditional consulting couldn't help. The risk was enormous. Unauthorized strategies violated company policy and could destroy what remained of her career. But watching Marcus Thompson's desperation reminded her of her father's face when their family business collapsed. the expression of someone who'd worked honestly for decades, only to discover that honesty and hard work weren't enough when systems refused to adapt. That evening, Sarah spread Midwest Retail Solutions files across her apartment kitchen table, alongside printouts of her original digital transformation presentation. The financial projections that had been deemed unrealistic 3 weeks earlier suddenly seemed like survival strategies for a business facing extinction. Her phone buzzed with a text from David. "Working late again? Want company for Chinese takeout and data analysis?" Sarah smiled, recognizing both personal concern and professional curiosity in his offer. David's ethical compass struggled with unauthorized projects, but his analytical mind couldn't resist challenging problems that traditional methods couldn't solve. "Bring the advanced statistical software," she replied. "We're going to prove that innovation works, whether Harrison and Associates wants it to or not." As she waited for David's arrival, Sarah stared out her apartment window at Chicago's skyline, where glass towers reflected corporate conservatism that prioritized stability over survival. Somewhere in those buildings, other companies were making the same mistakes that killed family businesses and destroyed careers built on innovation. Tomorrow, she would return to her cubicle and submit the required preliminary reports on Midwest Retail Solutions' decline. But tonight, she would begin the unauthorized work that would either vindicate her career or end it completely. Either way, she would prove that some ideas were worth fighting for, regardless of institutional resistance designed to prevent exactly that kind of fighting. Sarah's apartment had transformed into a war room by the third night of unauthorized analysis. Midwest Retail Solutions data covered every surface: financial reports taped to windows, customer purchase patterns mapped across her living room walls, and inventory spreadsheets that revealed systematic problems traditional consulting couldn't address. David Chen arrived with Chinese takeout, and his personal laptop loaded with statistical software that Harrison and Associates didn't provide to junior analysts. His ethical training fought against participating in unauthorized client work, but watching Sarah's systematic destruction had triggered protective instincts stronger than corporate policy. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. "This violates every company regulation," he said, settling beside Sarah at her kitchen table while opening containers of kung pao chicken and fried rice. "If Margaret discovers what we're doing, we're both finished." "We're already finished if we don't try," Sarah replied, pulling up customer purchase patterns that revealed hidden opportunities. "Look at this data, David. Seasonal purchasing spikes, demographic clusters, repeat customer behavior. Everything Marcus needs to survive is buried in records nobody's analyzing." David studied the visualizations Sarah had created using consumer analytics software she'd purchased with her own money. The patterns were undeniable. Customer behavior followed predictable cycles that could guide inventory decisions, marketing strategies, and operational timing with surgical precision. The predictive algorithms could increase inventory turnover by 60%, he admitted, his statistician's training overriding ethical concerns. Customer segmentation analysis shows clear opportunities for targeted marketing that would cost a fraction of current advertising spend. "Help me build the implementation framework," Sarah said, her voice carrying urgency that made David understand this wasn't just about proving professional competence. Marcus Thompson's business fails if we don't act. Another family legacy destroyed by institutional inability to adapt. Quote, "They worked until dawn, building digital transformation strategies that would integrate seamlessly with Marcus's existing operations. Customer analytics dashboards that revealed purchasing patterns, inventory management systems that predicted demand based on historical data and seasonal trends, marketing automation that targeted specific customer segments with personalized offers instead of generic advertising." "The pilot program needs to start small," David advised, his project management experience suggesting careful implementation strategies. "One location, limited scope, measurable results that prove concept validity before broader deployment." Sarah agreed, though her instincts pushed toward comprehensive implementation that could save Marcus's entire operation immediately. Her parents' business had failed because they'd moved too slowly. She refused to let conservative thinking destroy another family company. The next evening, Sarah drove to Marcus Thompson's warehouse with printed proposals that violated every Harrison and Associates protocol. The unauthorized client meeting could end her career instantly, but institutional destruction was already guaranteed if she followed approved procedures that led to documented failure. "You said you needed time to analyze our data," Marcus observed, reviewing Sarah's preliminary recommendations in his cluttered office. "This looks like solutions, not analysis. Traditional consulting provides analysis that documents problems without solving them," Sarah replied carefully. "I prefer developing strategies that generate results." Marcus studied the customer analytics visualizations with growing interest. The data revealed patterns he'd sensed intuitively but never quantified. Seasonal purchasing cycles, demographic preferences, and customer loyalty factors that could guide strategic decisions. "These recommendations would require system changes our IT budget can't support," he said, though his tone carried hope rather than dismissal. "The software implementation costs less than 1 month of current advertising spend," Sarah explained, showing budget projections that demonstrated immediate ROI. "Customer analytics platforms pay for themselves within 6 weeks through improved inventory turnover and targeted marketing efficiency." Marcus recognized opportunity disguised as technological risk. His grandfather had built success through understanding customer behavior. Sarah was offering the same strategic advantage using modern tools instead of personal relationships. "What's Harrison and Associates' position on this approach?" he asked, corporate experience teaching him to verify consultant authorization. Sarah faced the moment that would define her career trajectory. Honesty would end the project immediately. Deception would violate personal integrity while enabling professional survival. Between those extremes lay a third option, truth that created alliance instead of authority. "Harrison and Associates assigned me to document your company's decline using traditional analysis methods," she said, her voice steady despite internal tension. "I'm offering you the chance to prove that innovation can save businesses. Traditional consulting can't help." Marcus understood immediately. Sarah was risking her career to save his company, operating without institutional approval, but with professional expertise that could generate real results. The unauthorized nature of their collaboration made it more valuable, not less. "How do we proceed?" he asked. "Small pilot program at your main retail location. Limited implementation that proves concept validity without major operational disruption. If results match projections, we expand systematically across all facilities." They spent the next 2 hours planning implementation strategies that would integrate digital transformation with Marcus's existing operations. Customer analytics software that revealed purchasing patterns. Inventory management systems that predicted demand based on historical data. Marketing automation that targeted specific customer segments with measurable precision. "Timeline for initial results?" Marcus asked. 6 weeks for preliminary metrics. 3 months for comprehensive performance analysis. Marcus extended his hand, sealing partnership that violated corporate protocol while offering mutual salvation. "Let's prove that innovation works, whether consulting firms approve or not." Driving back to Chicago, Sarah felt exhilaration mixed with terror. She'd committed to unauthorized client work that could vindicate her career or destroy it completely. But watching Marcus's desperation transform into cautious hope reminded her why she'd chosen strategic consulting: to help businesses survive and thrive, not document their decline. Her phone buzzed with a text from David. "Lisa Park asked about your evening plans. I think she suspects something." Sarah smiled grimly. Lisa Park's loyalty was unquestioned, but involving another Harrison and Associates employee increased discovery risk exponentially. Yet Lisa's junior analyst skills could accelerate implementation timelines that might determine success or failure. "Schedule coffee tomorrow. If she's going to discover our project anyway, better to control the revelation." That night, Sarah reviewed project timelines that would either prove her digital transformation strategy worked in practice or provide Margaret Henley with documentation for immediate termination. The unauthorized nature of her work violated every corporate regulation, but following approved procedures guaranteed failure for both her career and Marcus's business. She thought about her parents' manufacturing company, destroyed by institutional inability to adapt quickly enough to changing markets. Tomorrow she would begin proving that adaptation was possible, regardless of corporate resistance designed to prevent exactly that kind of innovation. The risk was enormous, the potential rewards were even greater. And somewhere in suburban Chicago, Marcus Thompson was reviewing customer analytics that revealed patterns his grandfather would have recognized. Opportunities hidden in data that traditional consulting ignored, but digital transformation could unlock. Success would vindicate everything Sarah believed about innovation versus institutional conservatism. Failure would end her career, while documenting that some systems were too rigid to save businesses, or the people who challenged them. Either way, she would discover whether professional integrity required following rules that guaranteed failure, or breaking them to create success. 6 weeks of clandestine work had transformed Sarah's life into a careful balance between official mediocrity and unauthorized excellence. Her days began with mindless junior analyst tasks, processing routine reports and attending meetings where her insights were neither sought nor welcomed. But her evenings belonged to Marcus Thompson's digital transformation, where data analytics revealed opportunities that traditional consulting had missed entirely. The results exceeded even Sarah's optimistic projections. Customer engagement at the pilot location increased 45% as targeted marketing reached buyers during optimal purchasing windows. Inventory turnover improved 60% when predictive algorithms guided ordering decisions. Most dramatically, customer satisfaction scores rose from industry bottom quartile to top 10% within 5 weeks. "These numbers are impossible," David Chen whispered during their Wednesday evening session in Sarah's apartment. His laptop displayed real-time analytics from Marcus's retail system, showing performance metrics that defied conventional consulting wisdom. "They're impossible using traditional methods," Sarah corrected, highlighting customer behavior patterns that revealed hidden market opportunities. "But when you understand purchasing psychology and seasonal demand cycles, these results become predictable outcomes rather than lucky accidents." David studied the dashboard visualizations with growing amazement. His statistical training had prepared him for incremental improvements, not revolutionary transformation that turned failing businesses into market leaders within 6 weeks. The data integrity was unquestionable. Marcus's operation was thriving in ways that violated every consulting industry assumption about retail recovery timelines. "Margaret's been asking questions about your evening schedule," Lisa Park announced, joining their unauthorized strategy session with coffee and worried determination. The junior analyst had discovered Sarah's extended hours through careful observation, choosing loyalty over career safety when she understood the project's significance. Sarah felt familiar tension spike at Margaret Henley's name. The HR vice president had been conducting informal surveillance since Sarah's demotion, searching for policy violations that would justify termination proceedings. Extended work hours without official authorization provided exactly the evidence Margaret needed. "What kind of questions?" Sarah asked, though she already suspected the answer would confirm her worst fears about institutional resistance to unauthorized success. "Performance evaluation meetings with your former team members, questions about your current workload, and whether junior analyst responsibilities require after-hours commitment," Lisa replied. "Rebecca Foster mentioned concerns about your apparent disengagement from official assignments." The irony wasn't lost on Sarah. Her official work performance suffered because she devoted energy to unauthorized projects that generated extraordinary results. Margaret would use declining junior analyst productivity to justify termination, never investigating whether Sarah's efforts produced value elsewhere. "Rebecca's struggling with the Morrison account," David observed, referencing a major client relationship Sarah had managed successfully for 2 years. Traditional market analysis isn't identifying revenue opportunities that require innovative approaches. Sarah knew Rebecca Foster's limitations weren't personal failures. They reflected systematic problems with Harrison and Associates' conservative methodology. Rebecca followed approved procedures that generated safe, predictable mediocrity. Sarah's former clients needed strategic innovation that company policy discouraged. and Margaret's oversight prevented. The Morrison situation could work in our favor, Lisa suggested with strategic thinking that impressed Sarah with its sophistication. If Rebecca's traditional approaches fail spectacularly, it demonstrates the value of Sarah's innovation focus. Or it provides Margaret with evidence that my former responsibilities were too complex for junior analysts, justifying the original demotion, Sarah replied, recognizing institutional politics' cruel efficiency at converting failure into vindication of bad decisions. Her phone buzzed with a text from Marcus Thompson. Preliminary quarterly results exceed projections by 80%. Ready to expand pilot program to second location. Sarah smiled despite growing workplace tension. Marcus's success validated everything she believed about digital transformation's potential to save struggling businesses. The unauthorized nature of their collaboration made results more meaningful, not less, proof that innovation could succeed despite institutional resistance designed to prevent exactly that kind of success. We need to accelerate implementation timelines, she announced, making decisions that deepened their violation of company policy while increasing chances of discovery. Marcus wants to expand the pilot program. If we're going to prove this works, we need comprehensive results that can't be dismissed as statistical anomalies. David's expression mixed excitement with growing ethical concerns. His immigrant parents had sacrificed everything for his education, choosing corporate stability over risky innovation. Watching Sarah risk career destruction for professional principles triggered protective instincts that surprised him with their intensity. Sarah, if Margaret discovers our work before we have bulletproof results, we're all finished. Not just demoted. Terminated for cause, with references that destroy future employment opportunities. Then we make sure our results are bulletproof. Sarah replied with determination that reminded Lisa why she'd chosen loyalty over safety. Marcus's success speaks for itself. Customer satisfaction improvements, revenue increases, operational efficiency, data that can't be argued with or dismissed. They worked until midnight, expanding digital transformation strategies that would integrate across Marcus's entire retail operation. Customer analytics platforms that revealed purchasing patterns, inventory management systems that predicted seasonal demand, marketing automation that targeted specific demographic segments with surgical precision. Eleanor Patterson asked about your current projects during yesterday's partner meeting, Lisa mentioned as they concluded the evening's planning session. Not hostile questions, more like strategic curiosity about junior analyst capabilities. Sarah felt hope alongside anxiety at Eleanor's interest. The senior partner had observed Sarah's demotion with recognition born from similar battles 20 years earlier. Eleanor's support could provide institutional protection, but her involvement would also attract attention from people determined to prevent successful challenges to established authority. What did you tell her? Sarah asked carefully. That junior analysts work on challenging accounts that require creative problem-solving. Technically accurate without revealing specifics. As David and Lisa departed, Sarah reviewed project timelines that would either vindicate her career or provide Margaret with documentation for immediate termination. The success at Marcus's pilot location was undeniable, but institutional resistance grew stronger as results became harder to ignore. Her laptop displayed customer analytics that revealed patterns Marcus's grandfather would have recognized, community purchasing cycles, seasonal preferences, and loyalty factors that guided strategic decisions. The technology was modern, but the underlying principle was timeless. Understand your customers better than competitors do, then serve their needs with precision that builds lasting relationships. Tomorrow, Sarah would return to her cubicle and process routine junior analyst reports, while Margaret Henley built termination cases based on declining official performance. But tonight, she reviewed digital transformation results that proved innovation could save businesses traditional consulting couldn't help. The growing tension was unbearable, but the stakes were too high for retreat. Marcus Thompson's company was thriving. Sarah's unauthorized methods were working. And somewhere in Harrison and Associates' executive offices, institutional antibodies were preparing to destroy exactly the kind of success they claimed to value. Success and discovery moved toward collision with mathematical inevitability. The only question was whether Sarah's results would speak loudly enough to overcome institutional voices determined to silence innovation that threatened their comfortable mediocrity. Sarah's hands trembled as she stared at the performance dashboard that would either vindicate her career or serve as evidence in her termination hearing. 3 months of unauthorized work had culminated in results that defied every conventional consulting assumption. Midwest Retail Solutions had achieved a 340% improvement in key performance indicators. Marcus Thompson's voice carried disbelief mixed with overwhelming relief during their encrypted phone call. "Sarah, these numbers can't be real. Customer satisfaction scores that put us ahead of target. Inventory turnover rates that exceed industry leaders. Profit margins we haven't seen since my grandfather's era. How is this possible?" "It's possible because we treated your business as a unique ecosystem instead of forcing it into standardized templates," Sarah replied, though exhaustion made her voice hoarse. 3 months of 18-hour days were taking their toll. Dark circles under her eyes, weight loss from missed meals, and a persistent stress headache that no amount of caffeine could cure. The breakthrough had come during the 3rd week of expanded implementation, when customer analytics revealed purchasing patterns that unlocked Marcus's entire operation. Predictive algorithms identified seasonal demand cycles with surgical precision. Marketing automation targeted demographic segments that generated 80% higher response rates than traditional advertising. Most remarkably, customer loyalty programs built around individual purchasing psychology had transformed one-time buyers into repeat customers who drove sustained revenue growth. David Chen found Sarah collapsed over her laptop at 2 a.m., her apartment transformed into a data analysis command center that violated every corporate regulation. Customer journey maps covered her walls, financial projections carpeted her living room floor, and performance dashboards glowed from multiple monitors that displayed real-time metrics from Marcus's thriving operation. "Sarah, you're killing yourself," he said, genuine concern overriding his usual analytical detachment. "When's the last time you slept more than 4 hours or ate something that wasn't delivered?" She looked up from inventory optimization models that had increased Marcus's profit margins by 200%, her eyes red-rimmed but blazing with vindicated determination. "David, we did it. We actually proved that innovation can save businesses. Traditional consulting can't help." David studied the dashboard visualizations with growing amazement and mounting dread. The results were extraordinary. Undeniable proof that Sarah's digital transformation strategy worked in practice. Not just PowerPoint presentations. But success came with terrifying visibility that would inevitably attract institutional attention. "Margaret's been conducting informal interviews about your performance," he said carefully. "Rebecca Foster mentioned concerns about your apparent disengagement from official responsibilities. There's talk about formal disciplinary action." Sarah felt familiar rage build beneath professional exhaustion. Her official junior analyst performance suffered because she devoted every available hour to work that generated extraordinary results for a client Harrison and Associates had written off as hopeless. Margaret would use declining routine productivity to justify termination without investigating whether Sarah's efforts created value elsewhere. "Let me show you something," Sarah said, pulling up customer satisfaction surveys from Marcus's operation. 97% positive feedback. Comments describing the best retail experience customers have had in years. Revenue per square foot that exceeds Walmart's efficiency metrics. This is what innovation looks like when it's allowed to work. David recognized both triumph and tragedy in Sarah's success. She'd proven her theories worked, but institutional resistance was already mobilizing to destroy her career before results became impossible to ignore. His growing feelings for Sarah made the injustice personal. Watching someone he cared about face systematic destruction for having the courage to challenge systems designed to prevent exactly that kind of challenge. "You need to protect yourself," he said, his voice carrying urgency that surprised them both. "Document everything. Create evidence trails that prove your work generated these results. If Margaret moves against you, we need ammunition for counterattack." "I'm too exhausted to fight institutional politics," Sarah admitted. Vulnerability breaking through determination that had sustained 3 months of clandestine work. "All I wanted was to prove that good ideas could save struggling businesses. Instead, I'm about to be fired for the crime of succeeding without permission." David moved closer, recognizing the moment when professional partnership evolved into something deeper. "You're not fighting alone anymore. Lisa and I have been documenting our involvement in your project." Eleanor Patterson's been asking strategic questions that suggest awareness and potential support. Marcus Thompson's success speaks for itself. Their kiss happened naturally, weeks of shared risk and mutual admiration crystallizing into intimacy that felt inevitable. When they separated, Sarah felt strength returning, not just from David's support, but from recognition that her work mattered beyond personal vindication. James Harrison's been asking questions about Marcus Thompson's unexpected turnaround, David continued, his analytical mind already strategizing despite emotional breakthrough. He knows something unusual is happening. The timing suggests he'll investigate before Margaret can finalize termination proceedings. Sarah nodded, understanding that discovery was now inevitable. The only question was whether institutional curiosity would arrive before institutional punishment eliminated the evidence. Marcus's success was too dramatic to hide, too significant to dismiss as statistical anomaly. Tomorrow I meet with Margaret to discuss my, quote, performance issues, Sarah said, her voice carrying grim determination. Whatever happens, Marcus's business is saved. His employees keep their jobs. His family legacy survives. That's worth risking everything for. David studied Sarah's face in the laptop's blue glow, recognizing the stubborn integrity that had driven her unauthorized project, despite career-destroying risks. What if we don't wait for Margaret to control the narrative? What if we proactively present your results to people who might appreciate innovation over institutional politics? You mean Eleanor Patterson? I mean anyone with enough authority to recognize that you've accomplished something extraordinary, regardless of whether you had permission to accomplish it. Sarah felt hope alongside terror as she contemplated revealing her work voluntarily instead of waiting for discovery through Margaret's investigation. The unauthorized nature of her success violated corporate protocol, but the results spoke for themselves with mathematical certainty that transcended policy debates. "Help me prepare presentation materials," she said, decision crystallizing with dangerous clarity. "If I'm going to be destroyed for innovation, at least I'll be destroyed with evidence that innovation works." As they worked through the night, organizing 3 months of unauthorized success into compelling proof that digital transformation could save struggling businesses, Sarah felt her parents' failure transform into professional motivation. Their manufacturing company had died because it couldn't adapt quickly enough. Marcus Thompson's retail operation was thriving because she'd refused to let institutional conservatism prevent necessary adaptation. Tomorrow would bring confrontation that would either vindicate her career or end it completely. But tonight, surrounded by evidence that good ideas could generate extraordinary results when freed from institutional constraints, Sarah felt proud of choices that honored innovation over safety, courage over compliance, and results over regulations designed to prevent exactly the kind of results she'd achieved. The breakthrough was complete. The consequences were approaching with mathematical inevitability. And somewhere in suburban Chicago, Marcus Thompson was reviewing performance metrics that proved family businesses could not only survive, but thrive, when served by consultants brave enough to challenge systems that prioritized institutional comfort over client success. The Harrison and Associates boardroom fell silent as Marcus Thompson concluded his presentation, his weathered hand steady on the laser pointer, despite the magnitude of what he'd just revealed. Board members stared at performance metrics that defied every assumption about retail recovery timelines, customer satisfaction scores that rivaled Amazon, inventory turnover rates that exceeded industry leaders, and profit margins that transformed failure into extraordinary success within 3 months. "These results are remarkable, Mr. Thompson," James Harrison III said carefully, his Harvard-trained diplomacy struggling to process implications that threatened institutional assumptions. "Could you elaborate on the specific strategies that generated such dramatic improvement?" Marcus straightened his shoulders, pride overriding the nervousness he'd felt entering the gleaming 42nd floor boardroom. "The turnaround came from digital transformation strategies developed by one of your consultants. Customer analytics that revealed purchasing patterns my grandfather would have recognized, inventory management that predicted demand with surgical precision, and marketing automation that built personal relationships with thousands of customers simultaneously." Eleanor Patterson leaned forward, her decades of corporate warfare recognizing critical moments that determined careers and institutional directions. Which consultant led this transformation, Mr. Thompson? Sarah Mitchell, Marcus replied with conviction that echoed through the boardroom like a verdict. The most innovative strategist I've worked with in 30 years of business operations. She understood retail at ground level while bringing technological solutions that saved my company from bankruptcy. The silence that followed carried weight of institutional crisis. James Harrison's expression shifted from polite interest to growing alarm, as implications crystallized with brutal clarity. Sarah Mitchell, demoted junior analyst whose performance issues Margaret Henley had documented extensively, was being credited with results that revolutionized a failing business. Thomas Brennan, the independent board member whose Fortune 500 experience commanded respect throughout corporate America, studied Marcus with shrewd calculation. Mr. Thompson, when did this consulting relationship begin? 3 months ago, shortly after Ms. Mitchell was assigned to our account. And the scope of her work involved comprehensive digital transformation across your entire operation? Started with one location, expanded systematically as results proved the concept worked. By month 2, we were implementing customer analytics across all facilities. By month 3, we'd transformed from near bankruptcy to sustainable growth that's attracted acquisition interest from national retailers. Eleanor Patterson's expression remained neutral, but her mind raced through implications that would reshape Harrison & Associates' entire approach to innovation management. Sarah Mitchell's unauthorized work had generated results that traditional consulting methods couldn't achieve, proving that institutional resistance to change was destroying valuable opportunities. Mr. Thompson, James Harrison said carefully, were these strategies developed through official Harrison & Associates protocols? Marcus recognized the diplomatic phrasing that masked deeper concerns about authorization and corporate liability. His business experience had taught him to navigate institutional politics, but loyalty to Sarah overrode self-preservation instincts. Ms. Mitchell worked independently to develop solutions that fit our specific needs, he replied honestly. She approached our challenges with fresh thinking that wasn't constrained by standardized templates or conservative assumptions about retail recovery possibilities. Margaret Henley felt institutional foundations shifting beneath her feet, as Marcus's testimony contradicted everything she'd documented about Sarah's declining performance and disruptive tendencies. The unauthorized nature of Sarah's work violated corporate protocol, but the results spoke with mathematical certainty that transcended policy debates. Board members, Margaret interjected with practiced HR diplomacy, I need to address serious concerns about protocol violations and unauthorized client engagement that created significant liability exposure for the firm. Thomas Brennan's weathered features hardened with impatience that had destroyed countless corporate executives over 5 decades of business leadership. Ms. Henley, are you suggesting we should be concerned about protocol violations that generated 300% improvement in client performance? I'm suggesting we follow established procedures that protect both client relationships and company reputation, Margaret replied, though her voice carried defensive tension that revealed systemic vulnerabilities. Mr. Thompson, Eleanor Patterson said with authority that commanded boardroom attention, did Ms. Mitchell's unauthorized methods create any negative consequences for your operation? The opposite. Her approaches saved my business, protected 47 jobs, and preserved a family legacy that was 6 months from extinction. If following official protocols meant accepting traditional consulting methods that documented our decline, then I'm grateful she chose innovation over authorization. James Harrison felt institutional pressure building, as Marcus's testimony exposed contradictions between company policy and business results. His grandfather had built Harrison & Associates on client success, but current management prioritized risk avoidance over revolutionary achievement. We need to examine this situation comprehensively, he announced, though his tone suggested damage control rather than genuine investigation. Margaret, please provide documentation of Ms. Mitchell's performance issues and protocol violations. Margaret opened her carefully prepared folder with relief that policy violations would overshadow results that challenged her authority. Sarah Mitchell has shown consistent disregard for company procedures, declining performance in official responsibilities, and unauthorized client engagement that violated our risk management protocols. And yet, Thomas Brennan observed with cutting precision, these supposed performance issues coincided with generating the most successful client transformation in recent company history. Eleanor Patterson seized the strategic moment with political instincts honed through 20 years of institutional battles. I move that we postpone any disciplinary action until comprehensive review of both the methods and results involved in the Midwest Retail Solutions account. Seconded, Thomas Brennan said immediately, recognizing allies in unexpected places. Margaret felt control slipping as board dynamics shifted toward protecting innovation rather than enforcing compliance. This sets dangerous precedent for policy violations and unauthorized client work that could expose the firm to significant liability. Ms. Henley, Thomas replied with growing impatience. The only danger I see is institutional resistance to methods that generate extraordinary results. Mr. Thompson's testimony suggests we should be studying Ms. Mitchell's approaches, not punishing them. James Harrison recognized institutional crisis approaching as board members aligned against HR recommendations that prioritized policy over performance. His family legacy demanded stability, but his business training recognized exceptional achievement when documented with undeniable metrics. We'll convene a formal hearing to examine all aspects of this situation, he announced, knowing that public examination would expose systemic problems with current management approaches. Ms. Mitchell will have opportunity to present her case, along with full documentation of her methods and results. Marcus Thompson stood to leave, satisfaction evident despite lingering concerns about institutional politics that could still destroy the consultant who'd saved his business. I hope you understand that Ms. Mitchell risked her career to save mine. That kind of professional courage deserves recognition, not punishment. As the boardroom emptied, Eleanor Patterson remained behind with strategic calculations that would determine Sarah Mitchell's professional future. The unauthorized nature of Sarah's work violated corporate protocol, but the results demanded institutional adaptation rather than individual punishment. Margaret Henley gathered her documentation with growing dread that policy violations would be overshadowed by performance achievements that exposed her systematic resistance to necessary innovation. The formal hearing would examine not just Sarah's unauthorized methods, but the institutional failures that made unauthorized approaches necessary for business success. Outside the boardroom windows, Chicago's skyline reflected corporate conservatism that prioritized stability over transformation. But inside Harrison and Associates, institutional foundations were shifting, as board members confronted evidence that innovation could succeed despite systematic resistance designed to prevent exactly that kind of success. The discovery was complete. The consequences were approaching with mathematical inevitability. And somewhere in her junior analyst cubicle, Sarah Mitchell was about to discover that extraordinary results could either vindicate innovative courage or provide ammunition for institutional authorities determined to prevent future challenges to established systems that prioritized policy compliance over business success. Sarah Mitchell entered the Harrison and Associates boardroom with the measured composure of someone who understood that her professional future, and possibly her entire career trajectory, would be determined in the next hour. The same gleaming conference table where her innovative presentation had been dismissed 3 months earlier now served as the arena for her ultimate vindication or destruction. Margaret Henley sat at the table's far end, surrounded by carefully organized folders containing documentation of policy violations, performance concerns, and unauthorized client engagement that violated corporate protocols. Her expression carried the grim satisfaction of institutional authority preparing to execute judgment against disruptive elements that threatened established order. Eleanor Patterson occupied her usual position with strategic calculation that masked decades of similar battles against systemic resistance to necessary innovation. Thomas Brennan's weathered features revealed impatience with corporate politics that prioritized procedure over performance. James Harrison III presided with uncomfortable awareness that this hearing would determine not just Sarah's fate but the company's institutional direction. Ms. Mitchell, James began with diplomatic formality, you're here to address serious concerns about unauthorized client work that violated company policy while generating extraordinary results for Midwest Retail Solutions. Please present your case. Sarah stood, connecting her laptop to the presentation system with steady hands despite internal tension that threatened to overwhelm her professional composure. The interactive display came alive with performance metrics that transformed Marcus Thompson's failing operation into thriving business within 3 months. Midwest Retail Solutions was assigned to me as a junior analyst account specifically because traditional consulting methods had failed repeatedly, she began, her voice carrying conviction earned through months of clandestine work. Previous senior analysts documented decline without developing solutions. I chose to prove that innovation could save businesses. Traditional approaches couldn't help. The first visualization showed customer analytics that revealed purchasing patterns Marcus's grandfather would have recognized, community buying cycles, demographic preferences, and loyalty factors that guided strategic decisions with precision traditional consulting ignored. Customer engagement increased 45% when marketing targeted specific behavioral segments instead of broadcasting generic messages, Sarah explained, highlighting data that demonstrated systematic improvement across multiple performance categories. Inventory turnover improved 60% when predictive algorithms guided ordering decisions based on historical patterns and seasonal trends. Margaret Henley interrupted with practiced HR authority. Ms. Mitchell, regardless of results, your actions violated established protocols designed to protect client relationships and company reputation. Unauthorized consulting work creates liability exposure that could damage institutional credibility. With respect, Ms. Henley, Sarah replied with professional firmness that surprised board members with its mature confidence. Protecting institutional credibility by documenting client failures serves neither our company nor the businesses that trust us for strategic guidance. Thomas Brennan leaned forward with interest that reflected his entrepreneurial background. Ms. Mitchell, walk us through specific methodologies that generated these results. I'm particularly interested in implementation timelines and resource requirements. Sarah felt validation as Thomas's questions focused on practical business applications rather than policy violations. Digital transformation began with customer analytics platforms that cost less than traditional advertising spend, while generating 80% higher response rates. Inventory management systems predicted seasonal demand with accuracy that eliminated overstock situations and stock-out losses. The presentation revealed systematic innovation that addressed every aspect of Marcus's struggling operation. Customer satisfaction surveys showed 97% positive feedback. Revenue per square foot exceeded industry benchmarks. Most remarkably, employee retention improved dramatically, as workers realized their jobs were secure rather than threatened by ongoing decline. The unauthorized nature of this work concerns me deeply, James Harrison said carefully, though his tone suggested recognition of exceptional achievement despite protocol violations. How do we balance innovation with institutional risk management? By recognizing that institutional risk includes failing to serve clients effectively, Eleanor Patterson interjected with authority that commanded boardroom attention. Mr. Thompson's testimony yesterday revealed that traditional methods were documenting failure rather than preventing it. Ms. Mitchell's approach has generated success that protects both client relationships and company reputation. Margaret felt institutional ground shifting as board dynamics favored results over regulations. This sets dangerous precedent for policy violations that could encourage other employees to ignore established procedures. Ms. Henley, Thomas Brennan said with growing impatience, the dangerous precedent would be punishing exceptional performance that proves our traditional methods are inadequate for current market challenges. David Chen and Lisa Park were called to testify about their involvement in Sarah's unauthorized project. Their testimony revealed systematic collaboration that violated company policy while generating extraordinary results that traditional consulting couldn't achieve. We understood the risks, David said honestly, his statistical training lending credibility to performance analysis. But watching traditional methods fail repeatedly while innovative approaches succeeded made ethical choice clear. Client success justified protocol violations. Lisa Park's testimony carried emotional conviction that surprised board members with its professional maturity. Sarah taught me that consulting means serving client needs, not following procedures that document decline. Her methods worked because they addressed real problems instead of bureaucratic requirements. Marcus Thompson returned to provide passionate testimony about Sarah's impact on his business survival. She risked her career to save mine. Traditional consulting had documented our problems for years without developing solutions. Ms. Mitchell's innovation transformed failure into success that preserved family legacy and protected employee jobs. The results speak for themselves, he continued, his voice carrying conviction that resonated through corporate skepticism. 300% improvement in key performance indicators, customer satisfaction that rivals industry leaders, profit margins that attract acquisition interest. This is what consulting should accomplish. Margaret made her final argument with institutional authority that masked growing desperation about policy precedents. Success doesn't justify insubordination. Company procedures exist to protect both client relationships and organizational stability. Unauthorized consulting work creates liability exposure that threatens institutional reputation. Eleanor Patterson responded with political instincts that recognized critical moments requiring decisive action. Ms. Henley, institutional reputation is built on client success, not policy compliance that prevents success. Mr. Thompson's transformation demonstrates consulting excellence that enhances rather than threatens company credibility. Thomas Brennan provided the decisive perspective with business experience that transcended corporate politics. In 5 decades of business leadership, I've learned that exceptional results require exceptional approaches. Ms. Mitchell's unauthorized methods generated authorized success that proves innovation can save struggling businesses. Traditional consulting can't help. James Harrison felt institutional pressure building as board consensus favored innovation over regulation. His family legacy demanded stability, but his business training recognized that stability meant adapting to changing markets rather than preserving outdated methods. The board will deliberate these findings and announce our decision tomorrow, he said, though his tone suggested recognition that extraordinary results demanded institutional adaptation rather than individual punishment. As the hearing concluded, Sarah felt exhaustion mixed with cautious hope. She'd presented evidence that innovation could succeed despite systematic resistance designed to prevent exactly that kind of success. The unauthorized nature of her work violated corporate protocol, but the results spoke with mathematical certainty that transcended policy debates. Margaret Henley gathered her documentation with growing dread that policy violations would be overshadowed by performance achievements that exposed systematic failures in current management approaches. The board's questions had focused on business results rather than regulatory compliance, suggesting institutional priorities were shifting toward innovation over administration. Eleanor Patterson approached Sarah with strategic alliance that would determine the final outcome. You've proven that good ideas can generate extraordinary results when freed from institutional constraints. Tomorrow we'll discover whether this company values innovation enough to change systems that prevent it. The confrontation was complete, but the verdict remained uncertain. Outside the boardroom windows, Chicago's skyline reflected corporate conservatism that prioritized stability over transformation. But inside Harrison and Associates, institutional foundations were shifting, as board members confronted evidence that innovation could succeed despite systematic resistance designed to prevent future challenges to established authority. The Harrison and Associates boardroom, filled with tension that 42 floors of Chicago morning sunlight couldn't dispel, Sarah Mitchell sat with composed determination despite sleepless hours, wondering whether extraordinary results could overcome institutional resistance to unauthorized innovation. Margaret Henley's confident expression suggested expectation that policy violations would trump performance achievements, while Eleanor Patterson's strategic positioning indicated preparation for systemic change rather than individual punishment. James Harrison III called the meeting to order with diplomatic formality that masked internal struggle between family legacy demanding stability and business necessity requiring adaptation. The board has reached a decision regarding Ms. Mitchell's unauthorized client work and its implications for company policy moving forward. Thomas Brennan cleared his throat with authority that commanded boardroom attention. After comprehensive review of both methods and results involved in the Midwest Retail Solutions transformation, we've concluded that exceptional achievement requires exceptional recognition. Sarah felt cautious hope as Thomas's words suggested vindication rather than termination. Margaret's expression shifted toward concern as board dynamics moved away from policy enforcement toward performance celebration. Ms. Mitchell, James continued with formal announcement that would reshape institutional priorities. Effective immediately, you are reinstated to Senior Strategy Director with expanded responsibilities for leading a new digital innovation division within Harrison and Associates. The vindication hit Sarah with emotional force she hadn't anticipated. 3 months of career destruction reversed in single sentence that validated everything she'd believed about innovation versus institutional conservatism. Her parents' business failure had driven her need to prove that adaptation could succeed when freed from systematic resistance. Furthermore, Eleanor Patterson announced with satisfaction that reflected decades of similar battles. David Chen is promoted to senior data analyst and officially assigned to Ms. Mitchell's division. Lisa Park will join as junior innovation specialist, recognizing her contribution to successful client transformation. David felt relief and excitement as official recognition eliminated ethical concerns about unauthorized collaboration. His immigrant parents' sacrifices for his education were vindicated through promotion that rewarded innovation over compliance with outdated procedures. Thomas Brennan addressed institutional changes with business experience that transcended corporate politics. Harrison and Associates will implement new policies ensuring fair evaluation of innovative proposals without automatic bias toward traditional methodologies. We're establishing innovation review committees that balance creative approaches with risk management. Margaret Henley felt institutional ground disappearing beneath 15 years of careful career construction. What about accountability for policy violations and unauthorized client engagement that created significant liability exposure? Miss Henley, James replied with diplomatic firmness that revealed shifting power dynamics. The board recognizes that current policies inadvertently discouraged innovation that generated extraordinary client results. Rather than punishment, we're implementing systemic improvements that prevent future situations where valuable ideas are dismissed due to excessive conservatism. Eleanor Patterson delivered the decisive blow, with political precision honed through institutional warfare. Effective next month, Margaret Henley will transition to Special Projects Coordinator, focusing on policy development that supports innovation while maintaining appropriate risk management. This restructuring reflects our commitment to balanced approaches that serve client needs. The demotion was diplomatic but unmistakable. Margaret's systematic resistance to innovation had been judged counterproductive to institutional success. Her expression revealed shock that board consensus favored results over regulations she'd enforced throughout her career. Ms. Mitchell, Thomas continued with genuine admiration, your digital innovation division will serve as Harrison and Associates' laboratory for developing cutting-edge solutions that traditional consulting methods can't provide. You'll have budget authority and personnel resources necessary to prove that innovation can save businesses others consider hopeless. Sarah stood with professional grace that masked overwhelming emotion. I accept these responsibilities with commitment to proving that good ideas can generate extraordinary results when institutional systems support rather than suppress innovation. The formal announcements concluded, but personal reckonings were just beginning. Rebecca Foster approached Sarah with genuine relief that struggled against embarrassment about her role in the original demotion. Sarah, I'm sorry about how everything happened, Rebecca said honestly. I wasn't qualified for your position, and my failures made that obvious to everyone. You deserved better treatment than institutional politics provided. You did what you thought was right within systems designed to reward conservative thinking, Sarah replied with mature understanding that surprised Rebecca with its lack of resentment. The important thing is that we're all learning to balance innovation with collaboration. Margaret Henley gathered her materials with dignity that masked internal devastation about career trajectory that had shifted from institutional authority to diplomatic exile. Her genuine belief in protecting company stability had been judged counterproductive to business success. Sarah, Margaret said with professional courtesy that carried personal recognition, I hope your new position proves that innovation can be implemented responsibly. Perhaps we can find ways to support creative approaches without abandoning risk management entirely. The gracious response revealed institutional healing that transcended individual vindication. Sarah recognized Margaret's systematic resistance stemmed from protective instincts rather than malicious opposition to necessary change. Eleanor Patterson announced her mentorship program with strategic timing that maximized institutional impact. Harrison and Associates will launch Leadership Development Initiative focusing on emerging female executives who bring innovative thinking to traditional business challenges. Ms. Mitchell will serve as Founding Program Coordinator. As celebrations continued, Sarah felt complex emotions about professional vindication earned through institutional confrontation. Her unauthorized methods had worked, but success came through challenging systems rather than collaborating within them. The victory was complete, But questions remained about organizational culture that required individual rebellion for innovative achievement. David approached with personal warmth that transcended professional partnership. Congratulations, Director Mitchell. Ready to change consulting industry one innovative client at a time? Ready to prove that good ideas can save struggling businesses when institutional systems support rather than suppress creative thinking? Sarah replied, recognizing that vindication was beginning, rather than ending, of her mission to reform corporate conservatism. Marcus Thompson called during the afternoon celebration, his voice carrying gratitude that extended far beyond business relationships. Sarah, I heard about your promotion. My family's business owes its survival to your courage in challenging systems that prioritized procedure over performance. Thank you for proving that innovation works when people are brave enough to implement it. That evening, Sarah stood in her new corner office reviewing digital innovation division responsibilities that would determine whether institutional change extended beyond individual vindication. The gleaming windows reflected Chicago's corporate landscape, where countless businesses struggled with traditional consulting methods that documented decline rather than preventing it. Her parents' manufacturing failure had driven 5 years of career climbing that culminated in systematic demonstration that adaptation could succeed despite institutional resistance. The unauthorized nature of her achievement made vindication more meaningful, proof that individual courage could challenge systems designed to prevent exactly that kind of challenge. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, as Digital Innovation Division began proving that revolutionary approaches could be implemented responsibly within reformed institutional frameworks. But tonight, Sarah celebrated professional vindication that honored innovation over compliance, courage over safety, and results over regulations that had prevented necessary business transformation. The verdict was complete. The consequences were beginning. And somewhere in suburban Chicago, Marcus Thompson was reviewing performance metrics that proved family businesses could not only survive but thrive when served by consultants brave enough to challenge institutional conservatism that prioritized policy compliance over client success. 6 months after her vindication, Sarah Mitchell stood in the Digital Innovation Division's expansive corner office suite, watching Chicago's October sunset paint the financial district in amber light that reflected transformation both personal and institutional. The morning's client presentation had concluded with unanimous approval for implementing cutting-edge analytics across 3 struggling retail chains, proof that Harrison and Associates had evolved beyond conservative consulting toward revolutionary business solutions. Her division occupied an entire floor of the gleaming tower, equipped with state-of-the-art data analysis systems, collaborative workspaces, and innovation laboratories where traditional business challenges met technological solutions. The success of Midwest Retail Solutions had attracted national attention, generating client inquiries that exceeded the division's current capacity, while validating Sarah's belief that good ideas could save businesses traditional consulting couldn't help. David Chen knocked on her open door with coffee and quarterly performance reports that documented systematic success across multiple client transformations. His promotion to senior data analyst had evolved into unofficial partnership that balanced Sarah's visionary leadership with his analytical precision and ethical grounding. The Morrison account just signed for comprehensive digital transformation, he announced with satisfaction that reflected both professional achievement and personal pride in Sarah's vindication. Rebecca's traditional approaches documented their decline for 8 months. Our innovative strategies generated preliminary improvements within 3 weeks. Sarah smiled at the irony. Rebecca Foster's struggle with traditional methodologies had ultimately validated Sarah's innovative approaches, while demonstrating that conservative thinking couldn't address modern business challenges. The failed Morrison implementation had become case study in why institutional change was necessary for client success. How's Rebecca adjusting to the strategic planning division? Sarah asked, genuine concern overriding any residual resentment about past institutional politics. Better than expected. She's working with Eleanor Patterson to develop training programs that help traditional consultants integrate innovative approaches without abandoning proven methodologies. Finding balance between innovation and stability. Quote, your unauthorized success proves that good ideas generate extraordinary results when freed from bureaucratic limitations. Victoria continued with arguments that echoed Sarah's own beliefs about institutional reform. Imagine what you could accomplish with unlimited resources and complete implementation authority. Sarah recognized both the appeal and the trap in Victoria's proposition. The offer validated everything she'd achieved, while threatening to destroy the institutional change that made those achievements sustainable. Leaving Harrison would abandon colleagues who'd supported her transformation, while potentially recreating the same innovative isolation that had nearly destroyed her career. "My work at Harrison isn't just about personal achievement," Sarah replied carefully. "It's about proving that established institutions can adapt to embrace innovation rather than resist it. That's a more valuable transformation than individual success." Victoria's expression shifted toward impatience that suggested preparation for more aggressive recruitment tactics. "Ms. Mitchell, loyalty to institutions that punish innovation is admirable but ultimately self-limiting. Harrison demoted you for proposing the same methods they now celebrate. That pattern reveals systematic unreliability that could resurface when convenient." The reminder of Sarah's demotion carried psychological precision designed to trigger doubt about institutional commitment to supporting innovation. Victoria understood that Sarah's transformation of Harrison remained fragile, vulnerable to future leadership changes, or economic pressures that might prioritize conservative stability over revolutionary achievement. "Perhaps you need time to consider the implications," Victoria said, placing a business card on the table with contact information and salary figures that exceeded Sarah's current compensation by 300%. Blackstone's offer remains open, but market opportunities for innovative consulting capabilities won't wait indefinitely. As Sarah left the peninsula, she felt institutional pressure building from external sources that threatened internal progress. Victoria Sterling represented broader industry recognition that innovation could triumph over traditional methods. But that recognition came with competitive threats designed to undermine the systematic change Sarah had fought to achieve. Her phone buzzed with a text from Eleanor Patterson. "Industry sources report Blackstone's recruitment efforts. Board meeting this afternoon to discuss competitive responses and retention strategies. Your presence requested." Sarah understood that her breakfast with Victoria had triggered corporate warfare that would determine whether Harrison's transformation could survive external pressure designed to destroy innovative capabilities through talent acquisition. The battle for institutional change was expanding beyond internal resistance to include competitive threats that could fracture the progress she'd achieved. Walking back to Harrison and Associates, Sarah felt the weight of industry transformation resting on decisions that would affect not just her career but the future of consulting methodology. Victoria Sterling's offer represented both validation of her success and existential threat to the institutional change that made sustainable innovation possible. The gleaming towers of Chicago's financial district reflected corporate conservatism that prioritized competitive advantage over systematic progress. But somewhere in those buildings, other institutions were watching Harrison's transformation with strategic calculation that could either spread innovative approaches or destroy them through predatory recruitment designed to neutralize competitive threats. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us. Quote.